Hello everyone and welcome to another stream. I haven't been streaming in a while, so I hope that I still can do it somehow. And today I'm streaming alone, so we'll try to do something a little bit different. And it's not going to involve Rust, but it's probably going to involve a bit of node.js and a bit of AWS Lambda. So my plan for today is to try to fix a project that I've been working on for probably something around 6 years, which is called FullstackBulletin. Let me share the screen so I can show you. Basically, FullstackBulletin is a newsletter that is trying to provide useful content every week to all full stack developers. So there is a lot of content that you can read to try to stay up to date, and FullstackBulletin tries to be one of those places where you just get some kind of interesting summary every week with articles to read, with books that you can buy, or even inspirational quotes. So let me actually show you a little bit of the one of the latest issues, so we can kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. So these are some of the recent ideas. Actually, I'm gonna give you the link in the chat if anyone is interested in checking it out later. It's FullstackBulletin.com, and pretty much will give you the ability to subscribe, and then you can also see some of the oldest issues. So let's just take, for instance, this one. And this one, as you can see, it's kind of a very simple newsletter, nothing special. There is initially a quote, then there are a bunch of articles, 7 articles specifically, with some description, an image, you can read the article, and then at the end there is a book of the week. And that's all that there is to it. So you might be wondering, what do we need to fix there, right? It wouldn't be like a weird question. And the thing is that I love automation, and I've been trying to build this newsletter using as much automation as possible. Now there is still human curation. I still pick the articles that will end up in the newsletter manually. I read them, I understand if they actually make sense for the audience, and then they might end up in the newsletter. When I say they might end up in the newsletter, is because the process is basically, there is a very specific pipeline where I post all these links weekly on Twitter when I find things that are interesting. Then on Friday there is a pipeline that starts automatically, and this pipeline is going to read from the Twitter account of FullstackBulletin, and then is going to take all the articles that have been posted during the previous 7 days and somehow does some ranking, and then it basically takes the top 7 and creates the template for the newsletter. Then it's just a draft, so I can go in, take the template, modify it, and when I'm happy with it, I can schedule it generally for the next Monday. Hey Lorenzo, thank you very much for following. By the way, if you find this stuff interesting, feel free to ask questions. I can stop any moment and I can try to give you more information. So basically the idea is newsletter, some automation, there is a pipeline, uses Twitter, and some problems with this. So I went on holiday for about 3 weeks, then I was traveling a little bit. So along all this period, I kept the newsletter suspended, and then when I was back, my automation didn't work anymore. And I am running all this automation in Lambda, and it's written in Node.js. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And right now what happens is that there is a very specific error. I haven't even debugged too much, but I already know that even though this error maybe is not the one I was expecting, there will be at least other 2 errors. One issue is that Twitter revoked all my API keys, because Twitter being Twitter lately. So I don't think I will have access to Twitter so easily. I wasn't able to get new API keys for myself, for my own personal account. I was able to get some degree of API keys for FullstackBulletin. So maybe we can do something around that. Maybe we'll need to swap Twitter with something else, maybe Mastodon. The second issue is that I was also using another tool called Hootsuite to schedule the tweets. So I didn't want to, if I was really like 5 or 6 interesting articles in an afternoon, I didn't just want to blast all of them on Twitter in one go, but I wanted to maybe schedule them so that they will go on rotation every couple of hours. So to do that, I was using this Twitter scheduler called Hootsuite. And the problem with Hootsuite, very timely as well, they just canceled every free plan. And because I just post something like 15 tweets a week, so I don't know, probably less than 50 a month, like it's not worth to pay $100 just for that particular kind of service. So another idea is that I can just post them manually on Twitter, or even on Twitter itself there is some degree of scheduling, if I am correct. So, or if not, we'll figure out some other kind of automation, or just give up on the scheduling entirely and just post directly. So my plan for today is to try to troubleshoot this particular issue, make sure that we understand what's going on, and then let's see how easy it is to figure out if we can fix the Twitter problem and if we can fix the Hootsuite problem. Now, keep in mind that this is code that I wrote something around like 6 years ago, and I changed it very, very little. So it is pretty bad unmaintained code. Common.js will find it uses Babel very heavily to try to use a little bit of more modern features, patterns that I wouldn't use anymore. So we'll find probably some surprises. Hey Tommaso, good to seeing you in the chat. How are you? So let's see now, maybe let's do a quick overview of the code, because that can be also a good refresher for myself. And this is the code base. By the way, it's fully open source on GitHub. So let me drop that link in the chat as well. There are actually a few repositories. We might need to deal with more than one of them. Yeah, Lorenzo, you like legacy code. I hope that you won't regret that after you see my legacy code. So this is the organization for FullstackBulletin. You should be able to see that in the chat. And for some reason, my highlighter doesn't work anymore. So I was supposed to be able to show that link in the screen, but sorry, not working. And specifically the repository that I want to review first is this one. Let me drop the link as well. Called SLS create newsletter issue. Very descriptive. By the way, SLS stands for serverless framework, because at the time I was using serverless framework for most of my serverless projects. Not that you really had many options. So let's see, let's start actually by looking at the serverless framework. So let's see what are we provisioning here. So this is a lambda, and by the way, see how old this is version. I think serverless framework now is at least version 3, and this is still 1.2 something. So hopefully through the magic of npm we can still use this version without any surprise. So this is the name of the service, which is basically something that gets used to name all the different resources in this particular service and to create a stack for it. Then provider describes what cloud provider are we using and options. By the way, another thing that is deprecated, node.js 14, this runtime I don't think is supported anymore in Lambda, so we probably have to bump it at least to 16 if I remember correct. Hey, hello Javier, good to seeing you as well in the chat. So then we have a bunch of region, memory setting, timeout. By the way, the timeout is very long. This is not an API. This is a kind of a monolithic Lambda, if you want, where we are running a bunch of steps, lots of API calls. So it takes actually, I think, close to 1 minute to run everything. So the timeout needs to be a little bit longer than what you will see with usual APIs. Then there are some roles. We use some buckets. So this is giving me permission to deal with buckets, and we'll see a little bit of that as well. Now here we have a Lambda function called create issue. The handler, we will see it in a second. It's pointed here. And basically there are a bunch of environment variables that needs to be used to integrate with all the different services that I'm using. Now there is also a cache directory. This is all the Twitter configuration. Then there is Facebook as well. And this is my secret sauce. Remember when I said that I post a bunch of articles, but then only 7 are selected. The incredibly fancy way that I use to select the articles, like, is gonna amaze you, is by just counting the number of likes that every single URL has received, and I'm just gonna rank them by number of likes from Facebook, and that's my amazing ranking algorithm. This is not using any AI, this is not using any, I don't know, multi-source ranking or trying to derive the quality from the content of the article. No, it's literally just counting the number of likes, taking the top 7, and these are the articles that are selected for the next week. And it's, to be fair, it's a metric that works really well. I think I was able in the last 6 years to get articles that were good enough. Even when I had posted a bunch of articles, I was always finding the next Friday the articles that I was expecting to be the more interesting to be among the top 7. So I started very simple, and then I never felt the need to make it more complicated. By the way, if you know any good API or approach to rank articles, maybe in a way that is more driven by quality and not necessarily by the number of likes on Facebook, just let me know, because this might be something else we might look into for another stream. Okay, then there is Cloudinary as well, and the reason is because I'm gonna show you again, if we look at an episode, there are pictures, and these pictures are extracted by looking at actually a bunch of things, initially from the Open Graph, then if there is no Open Graph image, we try to extrapolate the first image in the article, and then if there is no image in the article, it just uses a service that gives me like a random image with technology keywords. So all these images then are properly resized, and to do all of that I use Cloudinary, and Cloudinary has its own APIs, so we need a bunch of API keys and settings to integrate correctly with Cloudinary. Then finally there is a bunch of MailChimp stuff, and this is all the API key, list ID, and then I use a specific template that is already pre-formatted with all the different slots. So I need the ID of that template, and then a bunch of other settings from email, from name, reply email, and test emails is the list of emails that we received, the preview of the episode when it's ready. Sorry, the preview of the newsletter issue. Then what do we have? We have S3 data bucket name. I actually added an extra feature at some point, which was blacklisting certain domains that either because they were giving me, so I could blacklist either entire domains, I believe, and specific URLs. And this is because sometimes I was having duplicated articles, and maybe because I was retweeting them in the range of a few months. And by using a specific JSON file in S3, I can keep a list of the latest, I think, 100 articles. And if I see something repeated, I'm just going to ignore it before doing the ranking. Then this Lambda runs with a specific event, which is a schedule event, and it runs basically at 5 p.m. every Friday. So that's pretty much it. Like, this stack is basically provisioning only one Lambda. As I said, this is a very monolithic approach. This Lambda is doing everything. Future idea might be to split this Lambda in a step function just to make it a little bit easier to at least observe, and we will see now that debugging this might be a little bit painful. So let's see if we manage to make it work. Now let's look very quickly at, I'm not gonna show you all the code right now, but we can look very quickly at the handler at least, just to have a feeling of the different logical steps. And again, this is a Lambda with Babel, doesn't use TypeScript and anything, so there might be room for improvement there as well. And this source map was used to make the error messages a little bit more friendly when using Babel. What else? Okay, so here this is the handle function, so called create issue, event, and context. What do we do here? First of all, we initialize S3. We create this blacklist manager. We create a Twitter client, we create a Facebook client, we create a Cloudinary client. Then we take the current timestamp because I need to check 7 days before to now, pretty much. And then this is basically checking schedule for now. So it's adding 1 week and going to the first day of that week. And hours 5. Okay, so this is basically checking exactly next Monday at 5 p.m. I believe. I'm not sure for what. Then we have a reference moment, which is right now minus 1 week. Okay, then this automation can check a number of Twitter profiles. So I can have a list of Twitter profiles from which to try to extrapolate tweets. More stuff, week number, year, bunch of console log, creating campaign, loading blacklist, generated blacklist URLs, loaded quote of the week, loaded book of the week. So as you can see, there are a bunch of steps of fetching data from different places. And then there is this cache directory. I don't even know what I was doing here with this persisted memo eyes. Okay, let's ignore this for now. So get links. This is where things are blowing up right now. This is all the function. Well, this function has most of the business logic that I described before. Needs a Twitter client, needs a Facebook app, needs a reference moment, a list of screen names, max tweets to fetch per user, number of results that we want to extrapolate, and a list of URLs that are blacklisted. And this is going to do all the magic of extrapolating the tweets for us. And once we have, this should give us 7 links with a bunch of metadata. Once we have that, actually this just gives us the links. Then we need to fetch metadata for every single link and upload all the images. So there is more code there that does all of this. At some point we create the campaign with all the other settings. And finally, I think at that point we are done. Okay. So, sorry, this was a lot even for me to process, but hopefully we have a better idea of the process. Let's have again a look at the specific error we got. So the specific error is saying, what does it say? Function logs. Let's have a look at all the logs. Sorry, let's go to monitor, logs, last hour, open the logs. Okay, so let's see what did we do. We managed to create the campaign, creating campaign FullstackBulletin. So this should be at the very beginning of our code here. When basically all the clients were initialized, this is the first step. I'm sure that we will see also loaded blacklist, generated blacklist, loaded quote of the week, loaded book of the week, retrieved issue links. That's the interesting bit, and this is empty. So maybe that's the issue, that the list is empty. Let's see. Where do we do? Retrieved issue links. Okay, so this links is an empty array. And this kind of makes sense because I didn't tweet much, and I didn't tweet from Hootsuite because basically I don't have access to it anymore. So even if I was tweeting from my profile, I think there is still a filter that checks that those tweets are only coming from Hootsuite. So let's see if that's the case. So let's keep this in mind. This feels a bit suspicious that it's empty. Uploaded images is empty. Creating campaign is actually getting as far as creating a campaign. So it's getting creating MailChimp campaign. So this is getting there. And now we finally get here where we have a type error. And this type error is telling us, can you read property title of undefined? And where is this happening? I'm a bit worried that this is moment time zone, so feels a bit weird. Can I read property title of undefined? Yeah, Tommaso, this is the whole stack trace that we get for this particular error, and is not necessarily reliable just because there is transpilation going on, there is webpack, and then there is source maps, and it's trying to stitch everything together. So I don't know if I trust it too much, but let's see if we have more here. Okay, here it looks a little bit better. I hope you can read where it's saying cannot read property of title. So it's the same error. Right. Okay, we can try to do one thing. We can try to run this lambda locally. Let's see if we manage to do that, because I haven't used this code and this particular set of tools in a while. So hopefully if we can run it locally, we can debug it and maybe see, well, first of all, if we get the same error, and then we can use the debugger to figure out why is this happening. I am importing moment. Are you asking? Oh, are you importing moment time zone? Sorry, I didn't read the entire question. Let's see. I think I am, but who knows what I was doing ages ago. I am surprised that I was using ESM imports where they were not even standardized, I guess. So we have moment, yeah, moment time zone. So it's like one big bundle of moment time zone, including moment. Where is it used? Good question. I think it's used in a bunch of places. So I use the current time. So get the current time in UTC, and then I do a bunch of date maths. And what do we do? Yeah, I think it's used mostly to figure out the time ranges between when to fetch tweets from and when to stop, and then when the next issue is should be scheduled for. If that makes sense. Reference moment in get links. Reference moment. Yeah, so let me show you this. I'm quite sure that this is... Oh, I don't have this code. Wait. Oh yeah, I didn't do npm install, I guess. I should be doing that. What could possibly go wrong? You probably see like 1 million vulnerabilities. Don't freak out. Come on. Hey Jocelyn, good to seeing you here. So yes, so basically it is failing in the create campaign function. So it was going through this one. So this one should be fine, even though I think it's still a legitimate question to see where do we use the reference moment. But it was getting as far as here for sure. And I think then it failed in create campaign with that title thing, if I understood correctly, because the last log that we saw was creating MailChimp campaign, and then we see the error. So it got as far as here, and then we didn't see this one, so it must be definitely failing here. So warning is just a warning. Okay, so let me show to Tommaso that piece here. Get links. Now, what the hell? Can you go there? Persisted memo eyes. Oh, okay. What the hell did I do here? Right, now I remember it. So because this call was taking relatively long time, because it's just orchestrating a bunch of different API calls. I think what I did with this persisted memoize is that there is a cache directory. That cache directory basically stores a JSON for every time we run this code. And this persisted memoize is gonna check if I already have it in cache. I'm not even gonna do all the actual HTTP calls. I'm gonna get the JSON from there and return. Otherwise, the first time we go through it, it's gonna populate the cache and then be ready for next time. So this is the actual function that we need to check. Best scheduled tweets. And surprise, this is coming from another library, because at the time I really like to... Sorry, Thomas is saying probably the moment is used to create campaign somewhere. Yeah, so let's skip this one for now, because this will be another repository. We'll probably need to touch this anyway, because I think there, if we don't fix that, we always get an empty list of articles, just because it's going to try to filter by Hootsuite. But for now, let's try to get rid of the error. Even if we get a totally empty campaign, I think it's still progress. So let's actually check this create campaign. And here, let's see, what do we get? Create campaign factory. Okay, so this needs an HTTP client and an API key for MailChimp. So this is basically doing API calls to MailChimp. Now, I'm just curious, if we search for title here, what do we find? Okay, that's probably where the issue is. Like, if we... Let's just say we don't trust that stack trace, because it might not be reliable. Here, we are definitely trying to access an array that we know that is empty, so this is going to be undefined, and then we go and try to get the title. So most likely this is the issue of our problem. Now, how do we validate this? By the way, I know that the Rust developers here are telling me, you see, if this was Rust, you probably would have written better code here. I'm thinking that myself, so you're free to think that. So, okay, let's try to think. I still want to try to run this locally. If we see the same error, we can try super quick fix. Maybe just leave this one to an empty string for now and just deploy it and see if we can get an empty newsletter. And then if that works, we can make plans on how to fix the actual underlying problems, which are we still able to fetch tweets? How do we get rid of Hootsuite, and what else do we need to do to get this to a better state? And I think long term, if you like this project, what I would like to do is to fully rewrite this as step functions, and in the process we can rewrite some components of that in Rust, or we can kind of slowly migrate it into Rust as we break it down into multiple smaller functions. So Thomas is saying the issue is the error, or that the links are empty. I'm making a guess here. I don't know yet, because I don't really trust the stack trace there. What I'm guessing is that here we definitely have an issue, because links we saw before in the logs that was empty. And here we are trying to access an item of that list and even reading a property. So this is definitely going to be undefined.title and not be happy. And it kind of matches this error saying, can you read property of title? Then the stack trace is totally weird. But that might be just Babel and Webpack and source maps not really tracking the right issue correctly. Does that make sense? Cool, let me see if we can run this locally first. So what did we do here? We have build cleanup, build webpack, build create, build release. I have a test, so there are some unit tests here, which is good. But can I invoke it locally? What would be the easiest way to invoke this locally? there is a serverless deploy. I know that there is a serverless invoke local. Let's see if we read anything from the event. Event, do we even read anything? We don't. Cool. Okay, so let's try to do that. If we do node modules bin serverless help, we do have this serverless framework utility, so I think we can do serverless wow, I was quite sure that invoke local, there it is. Sorry, this is what I was looking for. Oh yeah, thank you Lorenzo for dropping the link in the chat. That's what I was looking for. So now we can do this, invoke local, and I think there is f and function name, but let's make it fail just to see the error message. Okay, not the error message I was waiting for. Okay, f, and then the function name that we need to take from serverless framework. So what name did we give it here? Create issue. Then I also think we need to pass an event as either a file, but I hope we can pass it in line. I think it's row. Yeah, row. And then what we want to pass for now is just this, because it's really not even using the event, it just needs a trigger. So let's see what happens here. Here what we want to do is run this one. This one was failing, saying that it's looking for provider stage, and this is because I think we need to have another property or environment variable, OPT stage. So okay, we need to pass stage dev. Is that gonna make it happy? Cool. So it's running, it's failing, and let's see what is the error. What is the error? That's a bit obscure. Module not found. Which module is not found? Oh yeah, because I need to build it first, because it needs to, it's using Babel, so oh, I wish that we could just run it with Babel. Is there a hacky way we can easily do that? What if we take the handler and we just call create issue at the end for now? I know this is super hacky, but should work. So if we do this, then do I have here node Babel or something like that? We have Babel loader, which I cannot remember how to use, but maybe we can figure it out together. What can we do there? Also, I don't even know if I really need Babel, because most of these features now should be supported out of the box, but I think to just make ESM modules work, I'll need to change a few things anyway, so let's see, Babel loader. So if we do node modules .bin, what do we have here? Is there like node? No. Wow. Would it be difficult to rely on Webpack plugin instead? Let's see. I haven't done this stuff in a while, so my memory is not helping me. Okay, you know what? Let's build it and let's see what happens. So I think there was npm run build, and this is failing. Why? Can I use light is outdated? Please run. Wow, I haven't seen this one in a while. npx browser lists update db. That's kind of an interesting error. Also, I'm using node 20 there, which maybe not the best thing to use there. Cool, let's try again. Okay, I think that this is trying to use something that is not in node.js anymore. Crypto hash. So that makes me think that there is, yeah, Webpack is trying to do something that is not in that version of node.js anymore. Cool. I'm just gonna keep debugging, but I'm starting to be a bit afraid that this project needs a significant remodernization as well. But for now, I'm just trying to find a quick fix and then maybe remodernize it with step functions and Rust and rewriting it slowly, just for fun and to have it a little bit more modern. So let's try with node 14 was the version we had there. Actually, let's try 16 first. Let's redo npm install just in case there is any weird binary dependency. Okay, let's rerun this one. Build. Different error. How beautiful is this? Module failed. Unexpected talk, unexpected comma, where? Under JS. This is probably the very little code I added. I broke something. Of course I did. I forgot a parenthesis. Okay, let's try again. Okay, it's taking a bit of time, which is promising. Cool, we have some stuff there. I love all the warnings. Okay, so the next step is now we should be able to just do, where is the build, by the way? Build package JSON. So let's see, ls al build. We have under JS. So I think what we can do is just say node build under JS, and that should start everything. It's running. Cool. How is it failing now? Cannot read properties of undefined reading title. Yeah, and I think this Webpack is really weird. Now what we can do is we can do inspect brk that, and now if we go on Google Chrome, I can never remember the Chrome, what was it? Was inspect, that's the one. Okay, now we should be able to run our code. And because we are looking into the Webpack code, this might be fun. Yeah, it was the same error also in here, but I think it's because we are running the same Webpack generated source code that uses a library called source maps, I believe, somewhere here, source map support, And I had problems in the past with this one not being extremely accurate. But I think at the time was the best thing I could find to get a little bit better stack traces. But yeah, as you can see, not good enough. Okay, so we are here. Let's see, what's the easiest way to debug? I have a bunch of stuff that from another execution. We can pause on uncode exception. So let's just get it run and let's see where it stops. Didn't even pause, just crashed. Or it's still running. It might still be running. Yeah, Tommaso spotted what I was working on before, what I was debugging. I think this is just... What's going on? Was it still running, you think? Okay, let's do this again. So if we close this one, this stopped. So yeah, this one failed with the same error. Cannot read property of undefined. Okay, let's do this. Let's go back here. Can we find some code? Because this is yeah, where do we even start? So if we keep going, let's try this. In the some of it is the node.js internal code. Other is like basically Webpack loading all the dependencies that are somehow nested somewhere. I'm not too sure how the code is organized. Like here is loading lodash. There was moment time zone. So where do we get the handler? That's what I'm trying to understand. And also, okay, here, so I think we have all the code in one mega file. So inside here, if we search for create newsletter, was called, what was it called? Create issue. So if we search for that, we can put a breakpoint there. It's not there. Damn. Oh yeah, because this is QJS, index.js. This is not the index.js we want. Is there a way in the debugger to see all the files in a project? Because here we can add a workspace, we can add the build folder, right? Yes. And now the file we want to debug is basically this under.js. Okay, here we should have create issue. We do. Now, where is it? Function. Wow, okay, what the hell is going on here? Source map detected. Can I use it? What if I do this? Why did it go back to the other file? Okay, create issue. I don't know why did I spend the time to minify a lambda there. Okay, I think that's our code. Function try. Okay, here is creating the S3 client. I cannot even put a breakpoint. Why? Okay, continue to here. Is it gonna get there? You can use okay, try to add your local folder on the right panel. We did that. Pre-print the source code. We did that. Still is not very helpful. Okay, let's do the usual lovely thing, because when you have a bug in JavaScript, what do? You console it. Haha. Okay, so if we go into create campaign, what we want to do create campaign, come on, give me the file. Create campaign factory, return. There, that's what we want to do. So let's see if we do console log creating campaign, links. I'm quite sure we will see this, and this is gonna fail miserably. I'm not gonna expect anymore. Okay, creating campaign. Why it doesn't show the links? So it's failing even before it's get. Oh no, sorry, I need to rebuild. Okay, let's rerun it, and now we should see links is empty. So I think this kind of confirms for now that this is where the issue is. So what can we do here? If links is empty, let's see, links dot length, we do this, otherwise we do that. Or yeah, let's do it this way for now. Rebuild. Hey, Tinkercap, thanks for the follow. 63 line is the same. 63 line is the same, which is now this one. Yeah, very good catch. Content data. So this is gonna now fail here. Okay, so for now let's just copy paste this crappy thing here into there. Let's see if there is more. No, these are the only two. Then this links for each is not gonna fail because the array is gonna be empty, so it's not gonna do any of this. So maybe we get lucky and this is enough. So let's rebuild. And now let's rerun. Wow, it did succeed. Okay, so that was the issue. But now the problem is that, well, let's see first if I can show you. Give me a second. Let me see if I can get access to MailChimp and show you the actual email. Alright, so we have, if we go to all campaigns, there should be a new campaign which is scheduled for next Monday, so in a week. So this is where all the timestamp calculation was going on, because basically I was trying to figure out for when to schedule this campaign, and I was trying to calculate what's the next Monday. And if we open this one, I'm gonna put it on pause, of course, but it shouldn't have any realistic content. It should have only placeholders. Perfect, and we have only title 1, empty picture, and so on. It did get the book of the week though, because that's a totally different piece of code, and it did get the quote of the week. So now I think this is good progress for now, but I guess we still haven't, we only fixed kind of a data problem. That I wasn't having this issue before. I always had some kind of content, but now we have this issue. So I think being pragmatic, this is already a fix, because I could just ship this code, and what's going to happen next week when I get the preview is that it's just going to be empty and I need to fill everything manually, which is a lot more work than I want to do, but it's still, at that point, it's at least in a usable state. What we could do is start to look for the next 10 minutes, and then I'll need to unfortunately run away. We can start to look at the code for that other repository, the one that tries to extrapolate all the links, and maybe start to work on that one next week. If that sounds like a bad idea and you want to check something else in the next 10 minutes, just let me know in the chat and we'll happy to do something else. Okay, so where do we have that code? I think the easiest place is to get it on GitHub. So let me go on GitHub again. This is the code, I believe, and it's built like a npm library. So you can also find it in npm. I don't know why I built it as a library, because this is clearly a very specific and opinionated case. Like in retrospective, I don't believe anyone will want to do something like this, even though it's very flexible. I don't know. It's making a lot of assumptions that are not too abstracted. So let me clone this one and we can open it up in VS Code. Okay. So let's have a quick look at this one. If we look at package.json, also with Babel and stuff. Wow, this one initially was using Node 8, so you can imagine how old is this code. Okay. So if we look at index, it's just exporting this one. Oh, Tommaso, thank you for offering some help. Yeah, I think it might make sense to do a plan in a second. I'll show very quickly what this does, and then what is my idea of recreating this in a step function, where the first pass will be just breaking it down, take the existing code and just split it in multiple sections, but bring it to a working state. And then once we have as a step function, we can take the individual micro functions, and it should be easier to rewrite some of them in Rust, And also the debugging bit should be a little bit easier because you can see all the different phases running. You can see if one fails, exactly where it fails, and the surface of every step should be much smaller. So this is important, this one. Okay, so this code is a thing that I really loved to do in the past, and now I'm not too sure anymore. So this is kind of doing a sequence of steps, I guess, like a pipeline, but not like in a streaming fashion. It's more passing promises one to the next one and just trying to describe a chain of things. And this, of course, made more sense in the past when we didn't have async await, unless you were using Babel. This was like a nice way to just say do all these things one after the other and just take the input from the first one and give it to the second one. But I think today I wouldn't write it like this anymore. I think it would be probably much simpler to just write it in a more imperative style, but using async await to handle all the asynchronicity. So what is this doing is using get latest tweets using a Twitter client. And if we look at this one, this is, I think, just an API call. And this API call, what is it doing? Yeah, it's just extrapolating some data, flattened tweets, last tweets per user, get last tweets per user. Okay, so it's because it could fetch tweets for different users. So let's say you have 3 nicknames that you want to take tweets from. It's just going to parallelize them with a limit that is configurable. I don't know if there is a default there. But yeah, let's just say, I don't know, you can set a limit of 4. If you have 10 users, it's going to do initially 4 of them. Then as soon as one is finished, it's going to do the 5th one, and so on. So that's nothing too crazy. Then this one is the filter that we'll need to remove. Takes the ones from Hootsuite. And this is one of the things, I made this as a library and made it very configurable, and this is not something we can configure, it's hard to code it. So here a simple solution will just be, just remove this one, right? Then everything else should make more sense. Take the ones after reference moment, so we only want to take tweets that are after a certain point in time. We want to extrapolate all the links from these tweets. Then we want to make all the links unique. If there are shortened URLs, we want to unshorten them. We want to remove links that are invalid. And I think here I have a bunch of rules that are issues that I had over time. Let's see. Okay, so it's just making sure that they start with HTTPS. And it's making sure that the links are not undefined for whatever reason. Normalize URLs. So this is just calling normalize, which removes strip hash, removes the final hash. I think it removes a bunch of other stuff if there are like anchor text. Again, it does unique after they are all normalized, removes potential duplicates, removes blacklisted URLs. This one gets URL information is also doing a bunch of stuff. So this is basically trying to do a fetch request or whatever I was using, Axios probably, to get the metadata of every single page. Oh, actually, no, it's using the Facebook Open Graph API to get information about that URL. Okay, then retrieve metadata. This is the one that is trying to read from the Open Graph. Then remove links without title of description, just to simplify our lives. It's not gonna consider those. Remove invalid, add canonical URLs, unique by URL, calculate URL score, sort by score, take n, which in this case is going to be 7, add image URLs, keep minimal data. I have no idea what it is. So I don't know if this makes sense, but this is the part that is more involved. So all the logic that extrapolates the tweets. So technically this could be its own lambda in this step function. And my idea of or maybe this could be a step function on its own, or multiple steps in the step function. So let's see if we can sketch things out very quickly there. If we go into step functions, no, give me the designer. I really like the designer. Come on. Where is the new designer? State machines, create state machine, design visual workflow, standard. Okay. So what we want to do is a few things. So we want to start a few things in parallel. Flow, parallel, and we want to do a first lambda that gets book of the week. Then we can do another lambda that gets quote of the week. Then we want to do, can you add another one? You should be able to add another one. Come on. I'm quite sure you can have more than two. There, okay. Then we have get tweets, let's just say. And this one we can either do it as a monolithic lambda with all the code we have in that library, or we can do it as multiple steps. Then basically what we can do is to take all of this information and use it to create, how do you aggregate? Flow, there, actions, lambda here. So here what we can do is create newsletter preview. Now this is where most of the complexity is, because everything else is quite straightforward. But this is where we might want to break it down into multiple steps. Because for instance, at some point when we have 7 links, we could parallelize to just get the metadata for all the 7 links. So I hope that makes sense, and I think I'm gonna close today's episode at this point, but feel free to ask any question before I do that. No questions. Cool. Then I'm just gonna find somebody to raid. All right, thank you so much, and I think we'll continue next time with this project if you like it, and we'll try to get some progress and to restart the newsletter and then make the process a little bit better. Until then, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.